Good morning. I am Rotimi Agbabiaka, and this is So Soul San Francisco, Internationally Black, where we visit with black artists who are creating around the world. And this month, we're going to Nigeria, South Africa, Sweden, and beyond. Our guest today is Dr. Niyi Coker Jr., a playwright, director, scholar, documentary filmmaker with a globe spanning career. From having plays produced on the West End and South Africa, to being the artistic director of theater companies in the Bahamas and Sweden, to teaching at universities all over the United States of America, Dr. Coker has done it all. And today, Idris Cooper Anifawoshe and I will be chatting with him about his Swedish production of Raisin in the Sun, his latest musical about South African singer and activist Miriam Makeba, his time as a student at Nigeria's renowned University of Ife, where he was mentored by Olarotimi and Wole Soyinka, and much more. So, grab your coffee, sit back, and enjoy So Soul San Francisco Internationally Black with Dr. Niyi Coker Jr.
So we're here today. We're in Lagos. We're in California. We went to San Diego to pick up Niyi Coker Jr., who is a playwright, director, big boss down at SDSU, and who I'm very grateful to have met and worked with in Indiana. And Niyi, tell us a bit more about you and your work because
Well, like you said, basically, you know, um, you were very instrumental in helping one of my plays, Endangered Species, um, get on stage. Basically, it was a work in progress, and it deals with Islamophobia. That's the one aspect of my writing. Is as a writer, as a playwright, screenwriter, I try to deal with topical issues, social issues. And that play basically dealt with Islamophobia because we all know at that point in time, the US was, invading Iraq and Afghanistan. And those tensions still exist, Christian Muslim tensions, which to me hasn't made a lot of sense. And those tensions are in Africa right now as well, Christian Muslim tensions. I've been fortunate in the context that I'm an academic. I teach. Well, right now I don't teach. I'm director of the School of Theater, Television, and Film. But I continue to write and I direct. And I've recently I was in South Africa on a Carnegie Fellowship, uh, and I worked on original musical on Miriam Makeba. I wrote an original musical, 40 cast members, and was very fortunate to have it do a big tour and support of the State Department. It was a very successful tour of the USA and was actually set to tour in Europe and in Africa when COVID hit.
Oh.
So that production is in the back burner for now. I've done some documentary film work. My MFA is in theater and film, directing and production. And my most recent documentary piece is titled Otabenga, and it actually premiered at the Smithsonian.
mhm.
So very fortunate to have it premiere at the Smithsonian Institution, which puts it in the National Archives now.
Yes.
And you all know the story of Otabenga, and I hadn't watched it in a while. Um, Otabenga is in 1904. Darwin's theory of evolution was trying to be proven right. And you had anthropologists in St. Louis, Missouri at the World's Fair who went into Africa to bring in somebody from the Congo and locked him in the monkey cage at the Bronx Zoo and kept him there with the orangutan and basically destroyed Otabenga's life. And people would go to the zoo to watch Otabenga with the monkeys in the monkey cage. He was on display, and for I guess the mainstream of Eurocentric consciousness, it was proof that Africans or people of African descent were just, you know, were the closest species to apes, basically, and it put white people at the top. And it was again a justification for all the racial attacks and enslavement and the brutality and the denigration of people of African descent around the world. Otabenga was that story, and I see Otabenga is still a continuous story, because when Otabenga, in my documentary, he does kill himself, which is the conclusion, the only conclusion I could come to, but I was suspicious that in Lynchburg, Virginia, I'm sure somebody must have got to him or somebody must have murdered him. But I mean, we're talking 1914, 1915. That proof would be hard to find and decipher. But the Otabenga mentality continues till this day, because I mean, Black Lives Matter, hands up, don't shoot. And people of African descent continue to be targets, men and women, of law enforcement, even children, you know, in terms of eliminating and shooting without thinking. Because again, the lives of people of African descent mean nothing. And it's a mentality. It's a mentality that. So that's what the documentary deals with. I didn't mean to go into that in too much detail, but it's on Amazon Prime right now.
Okay.
Great.
Free
Wonderful.
for Prime customer.
Yeah. I was gonna say also a little bit about your work in Sweden too.
Oh yeah,
We're gonna talk a little. We're gonna talk with. We were inspired by this controversy over the raisin in the sun that was done in China. I don't know if you know about the Chinese production of raisin in the sun that was done recently.
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, well, we haven't seen it, but certainly we've heard people complaining about it.
Oh.
And so personally, I was interested in it, and there was this, claim of cultural appropriation and misappropriation because the Chinese people tanned their face a little bit and used cornrows. They didn't really go blackface, but they darkened their skin and put cornrows so that people could recognize. But honestly, I feel like they did it so people could recognize the work as a Black work, right? If they had done it in full Chinese and had done it as Chinese people, there would be this complaint also about cultural appropriation. So what way could they have done it? I don't know.
I'll tell you.
You did a production of Raisin in the Sun, right, in Sweden?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And there were the way it was, the way I worked it out as a director and with the cast and the theater company. Something's happening in Sweden, and it was happening then when I was visiting artistic director of that company in Sweden, in a place called Malmö, which is about 20 minutes from the border of Denmark, Copenhagen. That's where you have the largest population of immigrants coming from the Middle East, coming from Iraq, Iran, Syria, And Sweden, we know, is a very liberal country, and they bring in a lot of, allowing a lot of immigrants who, basically need a place of refuge. Um, just like the USA, though, those migrants um, have a very difficult time being Muslim, Arabic, don't speak Swedish. They have a very difficult time getting jobs in Sweden, right? Because in Sweden, to get a job, you must speak the Swedish language. They give them 6 months of free tutoring in English, and after that, you're on your own. So a lot of them are independent um, merchants, traders, businessmen. At night, they open up shop in the square and they sell kebabs, and they sell clothes and fend for themselves, and they public housing. But hardly can they go into neighborhoods to buy homes or rent homes because the Swedes just won't rent them. And there have been incidents where some Swedes have gone and defaced some of the mosques. They've been, discriminatory to some of the migrants, basically not giving them work, not employing them. What's fascinating is that you have a younger generation who pick up the language real quick. Young people learn languages real quick. And what they tell me is that they learn the language and they go and apply for a job. And they're told, well, you're speaking Swedish in an Arabic language, with an Arabic accent. So basically, you have this tension that's sitting down there, which basically makes Raising in the Sun a universal story. So in this universal story, you have a migrant family that's trying to get out of this situation of economic downturns and social paralysis. They try. This is what every human being wants, is the best for their family. Move them out of the slums, out of public housing. They've made enough money, or they at least now making an income selling food, having restaurants, and Swedes won't rent to them. So recently, in the last 2-3 years, you will see there's been a lot of violent attacks and clashes, especially in Malmo, south of Sweden. This was where Raising in the Sun, this was the transplantation, this was how Raising in the Sun in many ways became very relevant. And of course, they wanted to change their name to Raising in the Midnight Sun of the production.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I like it too.
Yes.
Was there any so it sounds like you did this production using actors perhaps of Middle Eastern descent in those roles.
Middle Eastern descent. There were some Danish actors, Swedish actors. The Danish actors have black hair, natural black hair. They have suntan, so they look, so they were good actors. They could play the part. And and then you had some with Middle Eastern descent who could. But of course, we did it in a mixture of, which was, I really started working hard to understand the Swedish language, the 2 years going back and forth. So we didn't do it all in English. There were lines that could be delivered in English, and there were lines like when they're home. When you're home, you're not speaking English it's not something they would do naturally at home.
Yeah.
So the younger children, Walter Lee, Benita, would sometimes exchange in some Arabic, some Swedish.
Lovely.
It all depends, on the situation. Talking with Mama, they would actually be in Arabic. They would be in Arabic and with interspersed with Swedish words, and so that was the challenging part, really, having them look at lines and go, okay, how do we say this in Arabic and we don't lose our Swedish audience? And so it was really a great experience, because what we would do most nights is we had 2 or 3 scenarios with the lines. So the nights where we had predominantly Swedish people in the audience, they would do more Swedish on the production.
All right.
The nights where you have more people of Arabic descent or Middle Eastern descent coming in, and we realized, oh my God, we're heavy on, they would lay heavy on the, but there's something about acting, there's something about music where you don't need to understand what people are saying. Their actions alone would reveal, the intent of what is going on. So we had a lot of fun with it, and it's sad. I mean, as a person who works in theater, Rotimi, you know that, and Idris, you hope that the plays that you work on affect change, real meaningful change. And so in some ways, I mean, there was a Swedish TV station that kind of covered the play. Well, not the whole play, but they covered excerpts and they talked about the problem. They interviewed people in Malmo and, who talked about why white Swedes in Malmo who would talk about why they didn't like or they couldn't bring Arabs into their community. And so hopefully with the production, they saw it, they were beginning to have a change of heart about it.
So yeah, so is that on your plate to go back to Sweden?
I'm not right now. No, seriously, not right now. Even if I wanted to COVID anyway, it wouldn't let that happen.
That's true.
And no. Right now, if I could go back to some place to work, it would be South Africa, because that's business that didn't finish because the cast is hanging there right now. You're talking about 40 people.
What theater was it in South Africa?
Artscape. That's the biggest theater in Cape Town.
Yeah.
And so, that was that's the largest theater, and it was, always filled to capacity. Because again, in South Africa, the fact that it was sad, or it is sad, that there's a whole generation in South Africa that didn't know who Miriam Makeba was. I mean, there's a whole generation.
Are you serious?
Oh my God.
She ain't been gone that long.
Yeah, but the thing is this, think about it, Idris. Those people who were born in the 80s, 90s, never heard her songs. Don't forget that she came to the United States in 1959, 60.
Okay.
When was the ban lifted on her music in South Africa?
Oh, it wasn't until Mandela came out of prison in 1990, 91.
Wait, there was a ban on Miriam Makeba's music?
Yes, in South Africa.
I didn't realize there was a ban on the music.
There was a ban on her music in South Africa. There was a ban on her music in Israel.
In Israel.
Golda Meir,
okay.
was offended by some of, because Miriam Makeba was very hardline PLO supporter. And she supported Yasser Arafat's movement and the PLO because she identified with the PLO based on what she had experienced in South Africa with taking land and apartheid and all that. And so she didn't nuance it at all.
Right.
And when she got married to Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, things got worse for her. Things got worse for her.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The
IRS, I'm sure.
IRS came after her. The store opened up a business in the Bahamas, which the Bahamian government shut down. Because they told her, they say, we don't want to offend the U.S. government, but there's a lot of pressure that you can't stay here.
Does your show cover these things?
Oh yeah. Oh.
This is wonderful because I didn't know all this about.
Oh yeah, and that's why
I knew Makeba was in some trouble.
Yeah.
The specifics of it have been not so clear.
Clubs stopped booking her. She couldn't do shows in clubs. Yeah. As a musician, your records aren't selling anymore.
Right.
You getting record deals. Club owners stopped, signing you on. Harry Belafonte kind of kept his distance from her.
Really?
Over a song. It was a dispute about a song.
Tell the truth,
that they would sing on stage. It was a Hebrew or Jewish song, Havana Gera, something, was one of those.
Havana Gila, which
and so she told Harry, she said, okay, you know what, I'm not going to be singing that on stage with you. You sing it, I'll be quiet and I'll join you. And he said, well, it's in the contract, we got to sing together. And she said, it's, I'm not going, this is, it's not work. And so she wasn't a nuanced, she spoke it like it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that would always cost you. And she paid
Yeah.
the price in the sense that um, she went to Guinea. In Guinea, she lost her daughter. She only had one child, boy. She lost her daughter in Guinea.
Mm,
She lost a grandchild in Guinea.
mm,
So she presided over two funerals
mm,
of her own child and her grandchild while she was in
mm.
Guinea. So there was her mother died in South Africa in 1963, and the South African government wouldn't allow her come back for the funeral.
Right,
So she had to deal with all that,
yeah,
in the loneliness of living
yeah,
in New York at the time,
yeah.
which of course, led to her second marriage actually at the time with Hugh Masekela, which didn't end well, didn't end very well at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, and of course at this point she was already, dating Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture. And her audience wondered. And actually the news actually they had her for breakfast. Because basically they were saying, you're so beloved. You were in the White House singing for Kennedy. Kennedy allowed you to go to the United Nations and gave you forum at the United Nations to talk about apartheid. And this is how you reward us by marrying a Black Panther?
Mm.
Now, if you look at it, rationally, no emotion, just look at this rationally. This woman can go back home. She's oppressed in South Africa by the white majority. She comes to the USA, which she, thinks, okay, it's a land of freedom and all that. And she begins to see Dr. King. She begins to see the segregation in the South. It begins to become a deja vu of where she just came from.
Yeah,
Wouldn't she get drawn naturally to that struggle?
yeah.
Wouldn't she get drawn naturally to people who are in the struggle? And it's someone like Stokely Carmichael?
Yeah, she's not going to cease to be Miriam Makeba because she's in America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in South Africa, her records were not in South Africa at all. Totally not in South Africa. So from the 60s, 70s, 80s, no Makeba record. So they have a whole generation who doesn't know her, never heard her songs, don't know her songs, don't know who she is.
Yeah.
So when, of course, I say, Nelson Mandela got out of prison. We're happy he got out of prison. He's a great human being. But there's one thing I always tell people in South Africa when we talk about Makeba. I say to them, I don't know any Black man who was in the world, the USA, Africa, Great Britain, who has ever freed themselves from prison. It's the agitation of people on the outside.
Yeah.
The fact that they continue to agitate.
Yeah.
That helps you earn freedom.
Yeah.
And there were very few people initially who were very loyal to Mandela in terms of he has to get out, and who put that on their radar and made it their life's mission. Miriam Makeba was one of those few you could count on one hand who made it her life's mission that Mandela had to get out of prison, even if it cost her economically, it cost her socially, it cost her financially, it cost her with the children. She roamed, she didn't have a home, went to Guinea. Sekou Touré was overthrown in Guinea. She had to leave Guinea. And then she went to Brussels. She didn't have a passport, And so she was, so finally when Mandela got out of prison, and Mandela was like, you have to come back. And she came back. She came back to a different South Africa from the one she left. She came back to South Africa where people didn't know her.
Yeah.
And economically, she didn't have any money. So she was now at that age, that advanced age, putting together back a band and going back to sing. And of course, she passed away on stage in Italy. The other things we do have a webinar, a conference coming up next year, 2020, 2021,
Okay.
early 2021, we're going to do a big thing on Makeba in March.
Okay.
And I'm doing it in association with the ZM Trust, with her family. At the ZM Trust, the trust she left. And just, a new thing just got released. Oh, it's a clip, it's a footage of a lot of her ideologies and her thinking.
Okay.
And so we want to do a conference around it.
Wow.
Especially in these times,
Mm.
because it's so prophetic. Everything she was talking about in the 60s.
I want to hear a little bit about what it was like coming up in Nigeria and beginning to do theater there. What drew you to theater in Nigeria, and then what led you to leave Nigeria and then and begin to just have this
Yeah.
life that has been so varied.
Okay. Well, I've always been interested in theater. Even actually in high school, as I were talking earlier, um, the head boy at the time, a guy named Victor Kola Thomas, was doing a lot of dramatic stuff in high school. But I knew that was my major interest. Aside from that, my mother's immediate junior brother, was a major theater director and a professor of theater, Ola Rotimi. And he actually was all talking of Yale. He got his MFA. He was actually one of the first MFAs from Yale.
Oh.
And he
right.
returned to Nigeria in 1966.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
66, he returned, he graduated, returned to Nigeria, and started his local theater company at Ife, which ran for so many years, doing authentic African theater. So what, through high school and then going to college, I knew I wanted to go to Ife, first of all. I couldn't think of any other place where I wanted to do theater. And then at Ife, I was really fortunate in Ife to meet and work a lot with Professor Wally Shrinka, who was chair of the department and directed me in so many productions. Requiem for a Futurologist, Camwood on the Leaves, Biko's Inquest. So there's lots of them that, I was able to really do work with him on. And I was learning. He was learning, and the moment I was done, I wanted to be in the biggest place in terms of like the theater capital. You think, okay, now I need to be in the theater capital. I really need to be where it's called the theater capital, and take it seriously, which brought me to New York to do my MFA at the City University of New York, Brooklyn College. That was a wonderful experience at Brooklyn College because it was very unique. It was unique in that there were people on faculty like Scott Kennedy, who's passed on, may so rest in peace. He's related to Isaac Leon Kennedy, who's body and soul, and was a great theater scholar. And he'd done a lot of travel in Africa. So he was kind of one of my anchors in the department at the time. And of course, F. Moore Abrahams, who was an African and won the prize, the Oscar.
Yeah.
Was in charge of the acting and directing, and so
right now
that was it was good to be around people like that. Mike Leaney is Laura Leaney's mother. Also in charge of the acting program. Benito Otolani, who's one of the greatest former scholars actually on Kabuki theater, Japanese theater. And of course, not forgetting, my directing teacher. So getting out of Brooklyn College, I tried to start working, did a stint at MTV. Then thought, look, I better join up with some of the Africans who were around in New York at the time. And we started a theater company called the African Ensemble, the African Ensemble Theater Company. African Theater Ensemble, I'm sorry, African Theater Ensemble. And we did several shows. We were able to do several shows off-Broadway with the African Theater Ensemble. We did at the Nat Home Theater, at the John Houseman Theater, and we were consistently, and we were able to work consistently, to do that on our own. I mean, we're looking at the NEC Negro Ensemble Company in New York at the time with Douglas Turner Award.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at that as our, as our blueprint.
Yeah.
And it was a big night when, I mean, we had a lot of people come to see
Yeah.
Earl Hyman. Earl Hyman, who was on the Cosby Show, came on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
But I think the biggest night for me was when Douglas Turner Ward himself showed up.
Oh wow.
Big Papa.
I was
Yeah.
really, that was a major night.
And did you do with the ensemble theater? Did you do existing plays? Did you write original plays?
Oh no. We were doing a lot of traditional African plays.
Okay.
The gods are not to blame.
Yes.
Overall went up by Issue and the Vagabond Minstrels. Which Femi Oshofuson as well.
Yeah.
Issue and the Vagabond
Issue in the background minstrel.
Yes. Madame Tinubu by Akin Shola.
Yes.
Because
it's my graduate school study.
Really?
Yeah.
Because really, New York, you have a lot of talent. You have a lot of drummers. You have a lot of dancers. You have a lot of, the talent is there. You have a lot of people who are experienced actors who hadn't been working, who were migrants as well, from different parts of not just Africa, because we had actors from the Caribbean who were playing African roles. We had actors from Great Britain, Afro-British actors, so it was truly an ensemble. Colleague named Paula Thomas, which is very strange. Not Victor Thomas, but
not
different guy. Paula Wale Sonita, not the same one. This was the guy I met in New York.
Wow.
Another guy named Jake Katori, Jim Badaru. These are the key people. We came together, and it's funny because then we went to speak with Baba Olatunji. May his soul rest in peace. He had a Baba Olatunji.
Of course. I'm a deadhead.
Yeah.
I followed the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
And part of my love for the Grateful Dead was the role of Olatunji in their concerts.
Yeah.
He was a great friend of the Grateful Dead.
Oh yes. So
yeah.
So we sat with him in his Columbus Circle apartment in New York.
Yes, child.
And talked about
the Bohemians.
Yes. Talked about this plan and sought advice and sought how to go about it and how to register it, and and
that's blowing my mind.
A lot of
right
advice
now.
led us to a lot of talent, and recommended to be the first members of that ensemble, people who danced with him, who drummed with him. So he was very giving. He was very giving in that, very, very giving and free with the advice. And so that was how it started. And we took out an ad in the Village Voice.
Where's that book? That book needs to be written, brother. That history. I mean, that's a pretty amazing to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was
Olatunji. Olatunji, a lot of, like, here's the thing I always say too, like, there was that big black protest, the theater protest, white theater, we see you, whatever they talk about, chickens coming home to roost. To me, how are we calling ourselves Black theater when we don't know jack about African theater traditions? If you can't name an African play to me, you ain't that Black theater.
Yeah.
You're kind of Black theater. Yeah. You ain't real Black. Yeah. And when I started my company, people said, "Oh, why aren't you calling it the African American theater?" Because I'm Black all over the world. And to me, inclusiveness is our friend, right? Being narrow Black is not our friend. It has never helped us. Not being connected to other cultures has never helped us. And this idea, I laugh about being a deadhead, but I woke up and I had this white boyfriend who took me to a Deadhead concert, right? And we could go into why I had a white boyfriend and why black men wasn't talking to me, but we ain't gonna go there. You already know that story. So I'm at the Grateful Dead concert, you know, and I look up on stage and there's 40 black men drumming on stage. You ain't gonna find that nowhere else. You wouldn't find that at a Kanye concert. You wouldn't find that at a who was popular. Maybe Prince, maybe Prince, but the rest of them busters wasn't trying to talk about Africa and their blackness.
Yeah.
And so for me, I just think, you know, when as for my company, and you know, I may cram it down their throat a little bit, but they, you know, hopefully they still love me for it and they respect me for it. But for me and my company, we're black all over the world. We're global black, and this connection, this lack of connection to Africa, really to me belies the hypocrisy that exists in African American theater.
Well, you know, for me, basically, I see it as part of the miseducation. And the miseducation has not taught, and there's a reason for it, has not educated people, Africans in America, of any connections with Africa.
Yeah.
More than anything, and this is not just from looking at it theoretically, it's also looking at it practically, because I used to run programs in Africa at the University of Missouri, at the University of Alabama, where we would every summer take students from the university to Ghana, to, you know, South Africa, to, you know, and you would always find that it was harder to convince African American students to take the classes that will go to Ghana, because they were worried about their safety and
bugs.
We do have a lot of white students who taking this trip and going to Ghana.
Yes.
And you know, you need to be part of this trip, and for the most part, I would always hear from the parents, and the parents would have all kinds of questions, and I'm patient enough to answer the questions, and no question, as I would tell them, is ridiculous, because what you have to understand is there is a systematized method where from K to 12,
yeah,
the African child in America learns nothing about Africa that is positive.
Yeah.
The African child in America learns that they have to mainstream to be, you know, to be successful.
Yeah.
The African child in America is not exposed to any African languages, any African customs or culture, because they're seen as,
yes,
you know, backwater or rural. You want to get away from anything that's, you know, that's that. So it's that systematized form of education. But then all of a sudden, the one thing you find out, and the one thing you tell a lot of, I preach to a lot of, I talk to a lot of my students or African American that I mentor, is that there's a cultural unity. The way Africans, a cultural unity, the polyrhythms in our music, whether you're listening to Bob Marley, or you're listening to the blues, or you're listening to Fuji music, or you're listening to South African music, there is a polyrhythm in African music that's consistent, number one. The second part of it, other than the polyrhythms, is if you listen linguistically to the African languages, and then you listen linguistically to what Africans in America have done and humanized the English language.
Yes.
You would find again that you could actually take what some white scholars have tried to denigrate, to say, oh, that's Ebonics, they're not speaking.
Yes, Ebonics, bring it back.
But that English, that humanization of English that you listen to when you listen to Africans in America, is directly related to the way Africans would speak in their language, tonality, tonal-wise. Because it's possible for you to pick up a phone and know exactly who's at the other end of the phone if they're African American. And you could hear the rhythms, the polyrhythms, and the cadence, and the way the English is spoken, and it's humanized.
Yes.
and it tells you a whole lot.
And it's intelligent. You
It's
talk,
intelligent.
yeah. Sally been gone.
You know,
This is the lecture you gave.
yeah. And so this is part of what I really acquired living in the South. Is I really started to see African traditions, even in the church. I mean, you look at the way you go to a church with that's a African American church, a Black church. The rhythms, the singing, the lecture, or the speech that's given that by the preacher is, powerful, and there's, a lot of give and take, callbacks, and, that's going on.
Right.
And, there's the one thing again that's called, when you look at the African American church, the Black church, is called getting the Holy Ghost. People going to trance.
Get happy.
They're happy. They're going to trance. They talk in tongues, and people with the white gloves are holding them so that they don't fall or injure themselves. But I believe is that you sing loud in church, you sing loud in worship, so that the spirit can enjoy the music and come down and take hold of us. And that's sixth sense. And so when you look at traditional African religions, the one thing that the Europeans always said about Vaudon or Candomblé or Santeria is that people go into trance.
Yes.
Why are they going into trance? Oh, there must be something evil.
It must
when
be
you
bad.
look at the church, there's a reason they're going into trance in the church.
Yeah.
Even though it's not Santeria. So when you watch a Santeria worship and you watch a Candomblé where the women are going into trance, and you come into the Black church and the women and the men are going into trance.
Yeah.
That system or that religion, that way that we have to practice that religion is universal.
Yes.
So whether you're in Jamaica or in Lagos or you're in Accra or you're in Birmingham, Alabama, you're in a Black church, you're around Black people because of the rhythms, the cadences, the culture, even though they're speaking different languages. But then Africans have been convinced on all sides, whether you're in the Caribbean or whether you're in Nigeria, you've been convinced. There's a head job that's been done on us to say, oh no, I'm not African, I'm Jamaican. Oh no, I'm not African, I'm actually American, I'm from Texas. And so that we have accepted it, and we have accepted it to the point where it's serving the interest of the people who've made you accept it, that division, so to speak. That division is there and it's strong. And, it's amazing that, everywhere in the world you go to India, Hyderabad, India, you have the cities who will tell you that 700, 800 years ago, how they got to India. But they tell you you see them, African features.
Yeah.
They're African.
Yeah.
You go to Papua New Guinea.
Yeah.
You go to the Fiji Islands. You go to the Solomon Islands.
Yeah.
The Fijians will tell you when you go to Fiji that we are African. We came from East Africa.
Yeah.
And you sit down, you look at the food. When you look at the food we all as Africans consume, it's the same basic kind of diet. The way we cook it might be a little different. So the commonality, what I guess my point is that the commonality, we have more in common, way more in common than we have, in terms of difference. You just come someplace else, that's all. That's all. And so culturally, which is where we come back to again, culturally, I think that the task for us as people in the arts is to find ways to draw that connectivity. I'm trying in some ways. I have the Africa World Documentary Film Festival, which is in its 14th, 15th year now. And if you look at the lineup in my documentary festival, it shows everywhere around the world. Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad, Lagos, South Africa, Philadelphia, Cameroon, St. Louis. I'm missing some places now. Bermuda,
LA.
LA, yeah. Thailand, Or am I going to show in San Diego? But
Okay.
but the lineup of all the documentaries, where we take about 30 documentaries, and each documentary, the goal of each documentary is to talk about the African world, not in singularity, but in totality.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you find submissions from Brazil, from Haiti,
Diversity.
you find submissions from places where you go, oh my God, are there Africans here?
Yeah.
You know, and you're looking at the stories and you're watching and you're like, it's phenomenal how much.
There's a strong musical community in Mexico.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Afro-Mexicans,
Yes.
they're now recognized,
Yeah.
you know, as being Afro-Mexican communities.
Yeah. And at the theater where we work, we do this thing called the Son Jarocho Festival, which celebrates the music of Veracruz.
Oh, Veracruz, yes.
Right. And the Afro mestizo music is called Son Jarocho. And we've tried to infuse it with more Africanness to get more African Americans interested in the legacy of the Son Jarocho. It's been kind of difficult, but I just wanted to put that on your radar.
Yeah. When is the next one? When is the next one? When is your next one?
Probably in January or February.
But Niyi, I was curious. I know you've worked so many places, and you know, just speaking about the ubiquitousness, I think, of the African experience of African people of African descent. Is there? I know earlier you were talking also about, you know, going to school at Ife, and I'd love to hear more about that experience, being in a place that was so centered in the tradition, Yoruba tradition. What that was like. I think there's a place in the world that you feel is the most receptive or the most open place for exploring or for connecting to these traditions, these African traditions, African aesthetics of performance.
You know, the funny thing is that my answer to that would be every place that African people reside in around.
That's everywhere when you're talking about Nigeria.
Yes, has its uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
Has its uniqueness. So I just feel like I was fortunate, very fortunate to have done the Ife route and to have been there at a time when it was at the height of its glory day. You know, a lot has happened economically in Nigeria, and the universities have been, you know, just totally debased, and you know, but in that heyday, when you had the African Institute of African Studies with the music area, with people like the Ubas and the African languages, modern African languages, Wande Abimbola, drama department with people like Wale Soyinka, Omoto Shaw, Ogunbi. Olarotimi, of course, started that department. The fine art school with people like Lawal and Roland Abiodun, who's in
Babatunde Lawal.
Yeah, Lawal is an artist. Yeah, I think he's in Virginia somewhere now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
he's come to San Francisco too before.
Okay. Yeah. And Roland Abiodun, who's written the books on African art. So for some reason, Ife was always the radical alternative, the Africa-centered alternative. Ife was Awolowo's vision. And he wanted a university that would be contributing to the discourse of Africa's independence and African values and African meritocracy, and to be the African intellectual giant, so to speak, you know. And so you found all those debates. Ife was a very active place back, you know, intellectually. You know, people would always argue, and you know, you had Marxists, you had communists, you had, you know, socialists, you had capitalists, you had, you know, people pushing religion. So in terms of vibrancy, it was there.
Yeah.
So
This is so important.
yeah,
So
so
important to
yeah,
have this dialogue and
yeah,
this duplicity of mind, because I'm seeing your career, your trajectory as being fueled by this stimulation
yes,
that
Mhm.
so often,
yeah,
particularly I feel like in theater in the US, that you have to be of one mind.
yeah, you have,
And the
yeah,
dissent
yeah,
and the conversations
yeah,
that surround that that can take us to larger places
yeah,
are squelched in the name of unity,
yeah,
Mm,
solidarity, and political expediency. And
mm,
it hasn't served us.
no, no,
It's not helping.
yeah.
mm,
So, yeah. So so in many ways, I think I know actually that I was really very in that context fortunate
mm,
to have that background and preparation,
Mhm.
which gave me a lot of confidence,
Yes.
a ton of confidence that I look back now and look at, 30, 35 years ago when I first, embarked on the journey to
Yes.
come to New York. And
It
I
makes
don't
you
think,
crystal
yes, it made me,
It
it
gives you
crystal clear in
clarity
my
of
mind
vision.
who I was,
Yes.
mm,
what I wanted, what kind of art
Yes.
and
Come
theater
on.
I wanted to pursue. And I didn't doubt, for once, I never had a sense of inferiority about anything that was culturally
mm.
African.
Yeah.
So when I heard people making arguments about the inferiority of people who were not comfortable in African, and when I say African, I mean African American, I mean Afro
Mhm.
Caribbean, I mean,
Mhm.
I always felt like I belonged.
Mm,
Mhm.
And yes, I would appreciate European theater and Eurocentric forms. I would for what they are, but they would not define my own existence
Right.
in terms of how I would define my art.
mm.
You don't have to throw the baby
Yeah,
out with the
that,
bathwater
yeah,
if you have a strong if the bathwater is nice and hot, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And if you got a
Because
bunch of
one of
nice
the
babies
things I
involved.
really like about working with you, wrote to me, is
yeah,
Mhm.
that we can disagree
yeah,
so vehemently on some really important things.
Yeah.
And this makes me, I feel like it makes you smarter,
Yeah, I think it's so
it makes
vital.
you more
Yeah.
capable, and it also increases your integrity.
yeah,
That you are seriously standing up for what you believe in,
yeah,
but you're not afraid.
yeah,
As Flame
Mhm.
Monroe says,
yeah,
A&S ain't never scared.
yeah. And so seriously, so when I tell students, I say, August Wilson was best, the best writer in the USA in the 20th century period. No debate for me. They look at me and no, there's no debate. August Wilson was bar none. There was no other writer in the 20th century in the United States who's as significant, who was as brilliant, who was most, who found a very strong voice, a unique voice that spoke about the experience of being in America. The experience of Africans in America. And I don't say the best African American writer in the 20th century. I say, no, he's the
Right.
best
No.
writer in the United States in the 20th century
Yeah.
because he did something that no other writer in the US or the world has done.
Yeah.
He completed it before he transitioned.
Yeah.
A play for each decade,
Decade.
and each of his
Motherfucker.
plays for each decade
Yeah.
spoke not just to African American culture,
Yes.
but African American culture as it had been transformed in the
Yes.
United States.
Right.
And Wilson's major gift, other than having a dramatic mind, was his use of language.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you listen to when you hear an August Wilson, you don't have to see it. When you hear the dialogue,
Mm,
you know that's the Wilson. because what he did, what he's done with with English is which is what I was talking about, the humanization that Africans have done with the English language in America.
Yes.
I mean, I was talking to you. See, you reminded me about Indiana, and I'm going to go back to that. The English greeting when somebody walks in a room or into an office is, "Hello, how you doing? I'm fine. Everything okay? Yes. Good afternoon. How's everything? I'm fine. Thank you so much." The African in America would say, when you come in, "What's up?"
What's up? What's up?
That in itself takes away the cold formality
Yes.
of how we exchange. When somebody walks in and the person says, "What's up?" and you respond, "School."
Yeah.
That alone has, there's something about language that already it melts the ice. It allows you to now at least be able to relate as human.
Yeah. It also connects to community.
Connects
Because
to
how are you doing
Yeah.
refers to your state of mind.
Yeah.
What's up means what's happening.
What's happening? What's up?
What's
You know,
up?
and that's very loaded.
Yes, it
Very
is.
loaded. It's not just how you doing. That's what's up.
No, what's up? And it can be used in so many different ways.
Yeah.
I have been in the store. Somebody's not 6 feet from me. And what's my answer? What's up? Why are you not standing 6 feet? You have the opportunity to explain yourself, but you won't notice that that's not true. That's not how we doing things.
So you're not saying move back or
No.
what's up?
What's up?
That alone.
Yeah.
There's
It's
more.
an invitation.
Yeah. You know?
Oh, I think that's our new show, Rotimi.
What's
What's up?
You know? And you know,
I like
I remember you told my student Sally been gone.
yeah.
Sally,
Yeah, bingo.
Sally owes you money.
Yeah.
You come up to Sally's,
Yeah.
her grandmama on the porch.
That's
and
it.
you say, "Is Sally home?"
Sally
Grandma
home.
say, "Sally been gone."
Sally being gone.
And your question to the students was, "Can you catch Sally at the bus stop?" They was like, "No, she been gone."
Grandmama don't tell you. Sally been
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, she
So you
been
didn't
gone.
get you didn't miss Sally by 5 minutes.
Been gone. That in and of itself, that is so powerful.
It is powerful.
Yeah.
And the information is in it. And this is what
Yes.
Douglas Wilson has done with all. If you listen to the dialogue in his play.
Yes. My favorite August Wilson quote from it's in a couple of plays is, "Time ain't long as it has been." Okay? I wake up to that in the morning. Time ain't long as it has been.
It ain't long as
Okay?
it.
When you reach a certain age,
Yeah.
time ain't long as it has been.
Yeah. It's getting shorter.
So it is. I watched Marlon Bailey. You know Marlon?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Marlon had to he had to deliver something about some paper. And they tried to talk to him about August Wilson's work and about what it took. He was doing actually a lecture. That was it. It was during the Robert O'Hara performance. He was talking about some of the things you're talking about how language operates and how African American and African language connects inside a theater to create this specificity.
Yeah.
And that in order to play August Wilson as an actor, you had to tap into African language rhythms. You had to understand those things. And the white professors were really threatened by this. And they kept saying to him, "August Wilson is more like Shakespeare. You're talking about," he said, no, Shakespeare ain't got shit to do with this.
Yeah.
This is Yoruba, this is Condomble, this is like, this is Eve Tweed.
Yeah. All wrapped in one. You gotta listen, you know. And the thing is, when you're multilingual and you can speak some African languages and you listen to what the lovely term bunch, you really
and bowl.
Yes.
The word bowl that means to understand.
And yeah,
There's not a word for just listening without understanding.
yeah, yeah,
Come on.
yeah, yeah. That is so true. You know.
Can we maybe finish up with a little bit of what you're doing in San Diego?
Yeah, well, I'm director of the School of Theater, Television, and Film. So I'm the chief administrator of a school that runs a very powerful MFA program for film, and it was actually in the Hollywood magazine ranked top 10 in the world, which is very good for us. And seen more applications come in. We have an MFA musical theater as well, in a musical theater program, which is ranked number 2. It's a very powerful musical theater program, graduate MFA program, and we have
For all you musical theater fans out there, hey.
I found this. I found the school and to be one of the what I consider a hidden treasure, because it's not in LA, it's not in San Francisco, it's in San Diego. A lot of people never really looked to see what was going on in here, and
they could get away with it.
Years it's grown,
yeah.
And it's produced so many notable alumni around the world. Look at
one of the first campuses to do Robert O'Hara's work too.
Mm-hmm.
Robert O'Hara.
Yeah.
When Robert O'Hara created a work called Good Breeding, that was at we started it at Naropa, and it actually got us all thrown off the campus in Colorado.
Wow.
And it went to San Diego State, which promptly put it on stage at La Jolla Playhouse.
Okay.
With giant phalluses and all kinds of.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was this.
Oh. Yeah, that's so. It's a treasure. It's a treasure, and I see why people don't leave here. I find a lot of the faculty members are very loyal. Students are very loyal. Grad students are very loyal. They graduate and they never forget about it and come back and continue to give.
But they brought you there, Niyi, for a reason. I feel like when someone like Niyi Coker Jr. comes to your campus and heads up and becomes the director, there's a vision there that they're after.
Thank you.
So if you could speak a little bit about like what's the future of this.
Well, the future right now, we successfully we now have an MFA in screenwriting, a 2-year MFA in screenwriting, which is going to be around the world. It's not brick and mortar, so you could do the writing course and take your classes asynchronously.
Ooh.
You have a low residency.
I was about to say, it's time to go to school.
Low residency, which means of the entire 2 years while you're working on the MFA, you have to spend 1 summer in the studios on campus. You got to come in and spend the summer because as screenwriters usually have an opportunity.
Yeah, right. What torture.
What production is like.
Go to one every weekend.
You have to come to fabulous sunny San Diego.
Come and do some torture and sun and stand and
yes.
And a city that's really very welcoming, and so that's one of the things we're doing with. Of course, diversifying a lot of diversity in our productions. Now we're looking at, doing even more in terms of diversification. A Latinx theater is something that's taken up with us actually looking at having a residential African American theater company on campus. We now have, $40-50 million new theater being built. Reshaped additional studios.
Yeah.
We're probably looking to have a studio in town. To have our own, studio lot, sound stage. We have one on campus, but we actually now really looking at, and it's getting closer, that we'll be able to have our own lot, our own professional sound stage and sound lot.
Wow. Yeah.
So in Chula Vista. So there's a lot of wonderful things, a lot of
it's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, if you need some help, boo-boo.
Yeah.
Almost there. So you said it on air, so you know
That's
you.
There we
right.
go. We got witnesses.
That's right.
You have
We, my,
post COVID. Post COVID, you're gonna get a lot of invitations post COVID.
okay,
Yeah, well,
we
come on down.
ready.
Yep.
We ready. This is so
Try to
wonderful.
emulate you, the
Like,
international.
I feel like, you know, I don't want to get all spiritual,
Mhm.
but there's reasons for people being in rooms together. There's a reason for, I didn't know, not necessarily know you as a playwright. You came with Shagun,
Yeah.
and it was you're just who you were
Yeah.
was so perfect
Yeah.
for the project at
Thank you.
Indiana, and just so perfect to me
Thank you.
as our sensibility as artists. Both, I think Rotimi can nod his head for this too.
You're right. Rotimi, there are no accidents in life. I don't. I
Yes.
believe
Yeah.
that meetings sometimes. I mean, there are really no
Absolutely.
accidents. Seriously,
Yeah.
people meet and it's always for particular prophetic reasons, and that they would do
Yeah.
stuff together.
There's
And
a path we're
yeah, there's a
following.
path that we
Yeah.
is going to place right now. So thank you so much.
You are so welcome, and thank you. You're
Thank
such an
you.
amazing
Yeah.
internationally Black artist.
Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Right.
Thank you.
Such a
Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of So Soul San Francisco Internationally Black. Be sure to go check out Dr. Niyi Coker's documentary, Otabenga, which is now available on Amazon Prime Video. We'll be back next month on November 21st, where we'll be going to China to talk about a recent Chinese production of Raisin in the Sun and have a no-holds-barred discussion about the current discourse around cultural appropriation. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy, stay beautiful. Goodbye.